welcome to a show where you will hear about how our liberty is being eroded by the very people that swear an oath to protect it.
Today, the president signed a big new anti-terrorism bill that would expand the government's ability to track down terrorists, but at some cost.
On this show, we will discuss many of the lies that the government that hates us, by the way, we will discuss the lies that the people in positions of power and influence spread every day.
And what is the best way to confuse children? Confuse them about their sexuality, confuse them about their gender, expose them to things that their little brains are not ready for yet. That is how they are confusing children. It is leading to chaos, and Big Daddy government, of course, can be there to pick us all up and take care of us at the end of it.
We will also talk about how current elected leadership at all levels of government has been corrupted by power and control, as well as discuss the types of leadership needed to correct our republic's course.
We the people. It was time to remember that we the people are the government.
Providing assistance for the Ukrainians to defeat the Russians, that's the number one priority for the United States right now.
I am your host, Larry Linton, retired U.S. Navy Command Master Chief and prior Tennessee House of Representatives District 12 candidate, and welcome to the Liberty, Leadership, and Lies podcast. Welcome to this week's show, ladies and gentlemen. The first thing I must tell you all is that it's great to be home and recording in the Goat Locker studio again. More importantly, I'm back home with my lovely bride, my loyal puppy, as well as with my daughter and my son-in-law. My last consulting engagement had me logging over 2,600 miles of driving, in addition to the air travel from Knoxville's McGee Tyson Airport down to DFW in Texas and back. I traveled from Dallas, Texas to Tyler, Texas to Kennedy, Texas, over to Alexandria, Louisiana, back to Tyler, and then finally returning to Dallas to catch my home flight. I logged stays in 5 different hotels as well during that time. While I was out, I also had to travel to remote locations to engage with the crews in Hawkins, Murchison, Alto, Donnie, Campbellton, Cotulla, and San Augustine, Texas, as well as Gina, Louisiana. All in all, I provided consulting and coaching to more than 45 individuals among 8 different teams at each of those locations. Quite often, those were 12-plus hour days, including drives of up to 4 hours round trip at some of those locations. So needless to say, it was an exhausting trip. We cannot forget that I also managed to record and publish 3 episodes of the podcast as well during that time. I believe I've said this before, but a good rule of thumb to go by for a podcast episode is this. For every minute of recording time, it's up to 3 minutes of editing time. Getting the sound quality right, editing out background noises, re-recording parts that don't sound exactly right, etc., etc. And I believe I mentioned this before, but I usually record each episode late at night. Usually. Because after my bride has gone to bed and Harlow is tired after puppying super hard all day, that's the quietest time in the house. Denise cares about the quality of the recording as much as I do, so I wait until the house is really, really quiet in the late evenings. For this episode, I'll be sharing an interview. Sadly, all of the participants I wanted on this episode weren't able to work out a time to come on the program together. But again, I'm working on the logistics for a future interview with these people. You see, I wanted to talk about what real conservative grassroots leadership looks like when it goes up against the establishment. On this program, we talked about this year's Williamson County, Tennessee Republican Party Reorganization Convention, as well as on the blog and in the newsletter. From the previous discussions, we know that the Williamson County GOP, they were pulling out all the stops to prevent losing their grip on power. Lying, cheating, stealing. The establishment Republican Party there in the county, and initially it looks like with the blessing of the Tennessee Republican Party, they were desperate to maintain control of the party apparatus in Williamson County, much like here in Sevier. Well, it seems that real conservative Republicans working together can actually make a difference. What this group of leaders did in Williamson County should be replicated all over the state. Once that is done, there might actually be some change in the General Assembly. change it from its current direction of slowly marching our state from red to purple to blue. In other words, marching us from liberty to tyranny. On today's episode, I will be interviewing one of the main movers and shakers behind the conservative victory over there in Williamson County. The interview will be broken down into 2 separate episodes to maintain my self-imposed time constraint of 30 minutes per episode. But for a bit of background, the man I will be interviewing for these 2 episodes on leadership is Steve Hickey. Steve is a veteran fighter pilot of the United States Air Force who lives in Franklin, Tennessee with his wife. He's a 1990 distinguished graduate from the Air Force Reserve Officer Training Corps at the University of Dayton, where he earned his Bachelor of Science degree. Additionally, he earned his master's degree from the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California. He has logged over 220 combat hours flying the F-16. It is awesome that this veteran has decided to take a stand in the arena. I just wish more people who wore the cloth of our nation and swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution, that they too would step up and continue to follow their oaths. Much like me, Steve didn't really become involved in politics until after witnessing the shenanigans of the 2020 election. After that poop show of an election, he got involved with the Williamson Family's PAC, a local political action committee based there in Williamson County. He has served as the secretary of that group since September of 2021. He has also been involved with the Center for Self-Governance, which is based in Washington State. The Center for Self-Governance teaches citizens how to meaningfully engage in politics by addressing issues with and within the system of government, not with the politicians. So in preparing for the interview, I asked Steve to provide me with his background information and biography, which he did, and it's impressive. Way too many awards and accolades to list in this intro. Suffice it to say that Steve is a real patriot, and his leadership contributed to the complete sweep of seats in the Williamson County GOP by actual conservatives. What he and others did there in Williamson County cannot be understated or taken for granted. What I would like for all of you to take away from this episode is this: these fights are winnable. All it takes is action. With that, let's get right into the interview, and I'll come back on the other side to close the show. Here we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with us today, like I just gave you his introduction, is Steve Hickey. He lives out there in Middle Tennessee, Franklin, Tennessee to be exact, and he was one of the driving forces in what happened in Williamson County that actually should serve as a blueprint for conservatives all throughout the state. And just to show that it is possible that conservatives can force the Republican Party to once again be a home for conservatism and constitutional principles. So, Steve, welcome to the program. I've already given the audience your bio, and thank you for your service. I know there's a friendly rivalry between all the sister services, but once we're all attacked, or one of us is attacked, we all do seem to pull together and fight the enemy. So, again, welcome to the program.
All right. Thanks very much, Larry. Good to be on board with you.
Yes, absolutely. Good to have you. So, what we saw here in Williamson County, I think, was indicative of what happens in every county here in Tennessee. Even though most people are trying to move here, or the refugees that are coming from other states, they see Tennessee as a bedrock state of conservatism and constitutional principles. But what we really, if you peel back the curtain, what we see is really purple GOP. Do you kind of get my meaning?
Yeah, and I would say, just from my observations over the last couple of years, it's not so much purple as much as it is green. And by that I mean you have at least in our county, a relatively small group of people that have profited for years, for decades, off of being politically connected and having access to information, having access to the levers of control of the government apparatus. And they may be conservative, they may not be conservative, but what they really are is they're opportunistic. They take advantage of their position of power to try to perpetuate that power and perpetuate the rewards that go along with that. So some of the people that are in the Republican Party or have been in the Republican Party, They very well may be Democrats running as Republicans. They may be notionally conservative, but what we kind of have seen is a lot of self-interest. So I'll just say that.
Yeah, I can see that here. I mean, pretty sure you're familiar with my story here, and my run as an independent candidate because of the extra constitutional bylaws that the GOP has, and then their pay-to-play scheme, and then the most recent, when I tried to be elected as chairman of the county Republican Party and the machinations behind that. But I'd like to, again, focus on what happened in Williamson County. When was the first inclination that things were starting to go bad?
First of all, I think it's important for folks to understand that state law looks at the Republican Party, the Democrat Party as clubs, and it gives them wide latitude to do what they want with their rules or not have rules. So there's no real oversight over either organization on what they have to do. So, historically, my understanding, and I've only been involved in politics for about 2 years here in Tennessee. But from my understanding, historically, the county Republican Party was kind of a friendly gentleman's club where, all right, we may disagree on some stuff, but we're not gonna use our position. If we're in power this time, we're not gonna use our position to try to hamstring you and prevent you from running again the next time. And both sides, or whatever side, kind of just agreed to play nice in the sandbox together. And I would say it's probably was about about 4 years ago. We have a local political activist who she ran for chair, and I don't know if I want to go into all her background, but just suffice to say, a lot of corporate money, a lot of corporate influence behind her. And anyway, the conservatives kind of blocked her from being able to be chairman. So the man who was elected chair, he wound up resigning about 6 months or so into his term, and the first vice chair stepped into the position. And everybody kind of came together, helped her out, and what started to indicate something was not right was when she started bringing some people who had been defeated into kind of try to influence things. And then she brought this woman who had tried to run for chair. She brought her in as kind of an unelected, non-voting member of the county executive committee. And she really, I think, was kind of running a lot of stuff kind of behind the scenes. But the upshot of it all was the conservatives started to feel like, hey, the game has changed, and we're no longer welcome in our own party. And 2 years ago, which was the first county convention that I attended, we managed to get 4 what we felt were pretty conservative people on the board to kind of counteract some of the influence that the chair and her assistant had kind of brought in. Well, what we saw was just kind of a continual marginalization of these conservatives, or co-opting them, kind of bringing them into the organization, but just a toxic atmosphere surrounding the county executive committee, up to the point where, I mean, you had almost a continuous revolving door in many of the positions within the party. Numerous people were either forced out or they resigned just because they were just tired of the chaos and the problems that the party was experiencing. I think I heard that we went through 6 treasurers within a 3-year period in the county party. There were some allegations that money wasn't being spent right, that it wasn't, people were donating. The former chair, she claimed that, hey, we brought in $500,000 during my tenure, but only $40,000 of that actually went to candidates to help them in their election. And if you drill down even further, you found out that some candidates received more money than other candidates. Some candidates who didn't even face a general election opponent received money, and other candidates who were in a dogfight didn't receive hardly anything. So there was definitely some favoritism that appeared to be going on, and just really kind of a bad vibe, bad atmosphere. So where I got involved and where kind of the grassroots groups got involved was after the after just the disaster that 2020 was with the COVID, the lockdowns, and then the election at the end of the year. You had a lot of grassroots groups that started to form here in Williamson County. You had Moms for Liberty started looking at they formed, and they started looking at the schools and some of the books and the curriculum within the schools that was just wrong. You had Tennessee Voters for Election Integrity. They formed because of concerns about election integrity based on what had happened in 2020. You had Tennessee Stands, which had formed, I think, earlier in 2020, but they're based here in Williamson County. So you had several Heritage Sentinel groups that started to pop up, and then even just neighborhood groups, people who they felt that something was wrong here in the country, and they wanted to, at the very least, they wanted to be aligned or in community with people who shared their concerns, shared their values. Because when you're in a stressful situation, you need that comradeship. So you had all these grassroots groups that started to form, and eventually, towards the end of 2021, we decided, we're going to go ahead and get involved in the electoral process, because we need to make sure that our representatives actually represent our values, our concerns, our interests. And
a novel concept, right?
I'm sorry?
A novel concept in a constitutional republic.
Exactly. So I actually got involved with a group called Williamson Families PAC, a political action committee, and we decided we were gonna try to change the membership on the school board and also on the county commission. And what we discovered in early 2022 is kind of what you encountered was some pretty severe pushback on some of our candidates. Oh, you haven't voted in such and such primaries. You haven't donated enough money. Blah 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 blah. And we're sitting there going, wait a second. We're conservatives. You're the Republican Party. We would like to participate. And we saw this door kind of go up, and we wound up having to run some of our candidates as independents because they didn't meet the Republican threshold. But what we also discovered was some of our candidates who did meet the Republican threshold, the primary voting record, they still were challenged as not being active enough in the party to run. So there was desire to kind of know you can't participate in this, and then as the primary campaign last spring went on, we started to see that unelected non-voting member of the CEC, she had her own candidates that she was trying to run, and they were in opposition to candidates that we were running, and we saw the thumb get put on the scale, kind of on the side of these other candidates. They didn't face the same headwinds that we did, and she was actively, as a member of the CEC, she was actively advocating for these people in a contested Republican primary, which it was like, really, this doesn't even have the veneer of impartiality on it. So and
that's against the bylaws too, right?
Yeah, absolutely it is. And of course, we saw during COVID, your Democrat governors that would impose these draconian lockdowns and punish people who violated them. And then, all of a sudden, well, I want to go have dinner at the French Laundry and I don't really want to wear a mask, even though I've told everybody else, all the peasants, to wear masks. Or, Gretchen Whitmer is going to go out on a boat when she has people arrested for water skiing in Michigan. So it was a rules for thee, not for me situation, and it was obvious, it was blatant. We managed to get a few of our candidates across the finish line, but not nearly as many as we had hoped. Well, then we saw the party really kind of show its cards. The one lone conservative who remained on the CEC, the first vice chair. Well, they did a political hit on him and did a removal hearing. And when we had some people that wanted to go and attend in support of this first vice chair, they moved the meeting an hour before it was supposed to happen. We caught up to where the meeting was and, tried to attend. They closed the meeting and then they called the police. So, and then the chair a few weeks later went on a national podcast, Diamond and Silk, with Mike Lindell's channel,
Right.
Diamond and Silk. She went on there and she just trashed us up, down, and all around. Really kind of went, okay. So now we know we really are not welcome in this organization. So that kind of, and there was a special election in September where the rules of the game again were tilted in favor of their preferred candidate. We wound up winning that, even though they tried to game it so that they'd win. But all of this kind of combined just kind of made us go, all right. We need to do something. We need to, at the very least, get the Republican Party back to some semblance of impartiality in the political arena here in Williamson County. And really, that's what you should strive for. When we started this last fall, I told everybody, I said, we will not become that which we hate. We cannot do to the other side use a position of power to consolidate that power and prevent other voices from being heard. And that is a tough thing for conservatives after we've been beat up on for a while to hear. But the reality is, we always have to approach things from the position of truth and fairness. And we didn't want to put a conservative regime in that would crush all dissent. We wanted a party where we could at least have a voice and be able to articulate what is important. And at the end of the day, I believe that we will win the day because we are coming from a position of truth instead of just trying to be out for power's sake.
Right, adherence to constitutional principles and conservatism, which
exactly
we want to engage in the arenas of logic and facts. And most of the time, if your opponents that aren't true conservatives or constitutionalists, they cannot engage in the arena of facts and logic. So that's why they try to do everything else to destroy you or game the system. Right.
So we started last year, and I had mentioned all those grassroots groups before. We know about one another. Some of us are concerned about schools. Some concerned about voter integrity. There's people concerned about 2A issues. So, the trick whenever you're trying to get, a group of people together is to find a way to link arms, to bring everybody together and work together so that you have a common purpose. So we started last year by what we called uniting the clans. We brought everybody together. We wanted everybody to be aware of, what we were trying to do, why we were trying to do it. And then, we talked about how we would go about doing it. One of the things that concerned me was whenever you get a bunch of people together, a bunch of groups, large, small, some groups are going to say, well, I want my person to be on the board, or I want this person to be on the board, or, I don't want that person to be on the board. So, trying to find a collection of candidates that everybody would feel comfortable with and would buy into was definitely a challenge. But we wound up navigating that pretty effectively by recognizing, hey, the objective is this, and as long as the candidates buy into that message, then we had all these groups kind of acquiesce and go, okay, I'm good with this person, I'm good with the message. So,
which is something I try to talk about a lot. That's something that conservatives are really, really bad at. We're really bad about coalescing together because, conservatism by its very nature is individualists.
Yep.
We need to overcome that and do like what you do. So that's, I say what happened in Williamson County has to be a blueprint, not only for every individual county in the state of Tennessee, but every individual county GOP party in the country. Yes. We have to coalesce. We have to beat out these differences and pick the best conservative constitutional candidate going forward. because the Democrats, I call them communists, they do that so well. I mean, they live by collectivism. So somebody that's going to speak collectively with all their voices, they're going to rally behind 100%. And conservatives, by our very nature, we're not good at this. So that's why I say what you guys did in Williamson County has to be the blueprint for what we do going forward everywhere.
So you touched on a very good point. Yeah, absolutely. We need to coalesce, but one of the things that we heard last year and we kind of heard this year was exactly that from the other side. Hey, why aren't you getting on board? Why are we fighting? We can't have this fighting. Democrats, they do this so well, staying locked, staying unified, and that is very important. But if you unify behind, I'm just going to say, Mitt Romney, you're not going to have a Republican Party. You're going to have Democrat light. And, we've got to be able, and what we did is we said, this is what we want to accomplish. We want to have a party that, first of all, we have to define what a conservative is. And we have to come to some agreement that there are some core beliefs that we're all going to say, yeah, that's important. And we're going to expect that our elected officials are going to, toe the line on these issues, and that there's not going to be this, well, we need to partner with our Democrats allies to get something done. And no, I mean, if we're in a supermajority red state, it should be pretty easy for us to say, no, this is what we believe, and sorry, that's just the way it works. We're not in a situation where we have to compromise values to get something done. And I'll just go on this tangent with the latest iteration of gun control. I feel like we're in a situation right now where the left is pushing hard for gun control, and we have a Republican legislature that is feeling the heat and going, well, we have to do something, and let's do something, and that feeling that we have to do something is going to lead us to a very bad place. And I liken it to, if you have a grease fire on your stove, you can do something by grabbing a fire extinguisher and trying to put out the fire, but all you're going to do is make your situation exponentially worse. Right. So, this desire to do something is maybe not the best course of action. Maybe we should take a step back and think about it. But
for the most part, it's to be seen doing something, even to be seen doing something, even if it doesn't agree or doesn't align with your principles. It's more important to these elected officials to be seen doing something,
and that's what they're feeling right now. They're feeling the heat. They've got the media is doing a full court press on this to get some kind of legislation passed. It doesn't matter that it's probably not going to address the root cause of the problem. It's just window dressing, but it's going to be window dressing that is going to be one more step down the road towards, ultimately, disarming the population. So,
yeah, I had one guy explain it to me like this. I've talked about it on my podcast before. Every time a legislative body, be it the General Assembly in Nashville or D.C., Congress in D.C., every time they pass a law or put a regulation in place, they're being pastry bakers. You know how you get them light, fluffy pastries? You got to put a layer and a layer. So everything they do, no matter what, is putting a layer between the citizen and their inalienable rights. Mm-hmm. And that and it's proven throughout history, all we got to do is study history, putting layers and layers between us and our inalienable, constitutionally protected rights only leads to more and more of this chaos.
Yep.
That's it for the first half of the interview, folks. Be sure and tune in next Friday for the conclusion. And it is my hope that both of these episodes serve as inspiration to all of you to take action to make the Republican Party a home for conservatism and constitutional principles once again. With that is all the time I have for this week's show. Again, I really hope you enjoyed part one of the interview. Also, it is my hope that this group of conservatives' actions in Williamson County will encourage you to take a stand in the arena to reclaim our constitutional republic from the hands of the ruling elite, the new aristocracy. In closing, we have this week's wisdom from God's Word, and today it comes to us from Psalms 56:6. They conspire, they lurk, they watch my steps, hoping to take my life. The ruling elite have conspired, lurked, and are always keeping an eye on we the people in the hopes of solidifying their control over our lives, taking our lives. Take heart from what happened in Williamson County, Tennessee. Thank you all for listening this week, and I pray that you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Until next week, stand in the arena with me. Reveille, it's time to wake up.